I thought I was helping someone in danger that night. But when the police told me she was missing from a psychiatric facility, I realized something far worse. I might have let the wrong person in. I worked the midnight shift at a gas station off Rosedale Highway, one of those half-lit spots that still plays 80s rock through a tiny ceiling speaker. It's a quiet job. Stock the coolers, balance the drawer, and nod at the occasional trucker. Policy says that after midnight, the doors stay locked. Anyone who wants something uses the drawer slot. Safer that way. The night outside can be a different world. That night was a foggy February one. I was labeling a tray of burritos when someone knocked. It wasn't a bang or a shout, just 3 soft taps. I looked up. A woman stood just beyond the glow of the security light, hands cupped to the glass. Her hair was damp, jacket zipped to her throat. No car at the pumps. No sound but the cooler behind me. She leaned closer, lips moving. "Please, my car died. Can I wait inside?" It's the kind of thing you hear sometimes. Usually it's a lie for warmth or a ride. But she looked terrified, like she'd run out of something more than gas. I pressed the intercom button. "Sorry, store's closed to walk-ins. You can sit on the bench under the light. I'll call a patrol to check on your car." She shook her head, voice trembling through the speaker. "Someone followed me. Please, just for a minute." I looked around. Empty lot. Fog thick enough to swallow the edge of the pumps. I thought for a second, but then hit the buzzer. "Straight to the counter," I said, hands visible. She stepped inside, keeping close to the wall like she was afraid of being seen through the glass. Her eyes darted toward the door, then the windows. "You can lock it again," she said. "Please." I did. The lock thudded home louder than usual. "Coffee?" I offered, because sometimes normal words keep a situation from unraveling. She nodded, wrapped her hands around the paper cup like it was medicine. "He followed me from the ramp," she said after a moment. "He slowed down when I pulled over, then he stopped ahead. I just ran." I called non-emergency and gave the dispatcher the details. They said a unit would come by soon. "You're safe here," I told her, and I meant it. But she wasn't acting like she believed me. She avoided standing directly under the camera and kept tugging her sleeves down over her wrists. When I asked her name, she paused. "Marcy," she said finally, but it didn't sound real. She stared at the back hallway. "That door, does it lock twice?" "I checked it earlier," I said. She nodded, but didn't look relieved, just thoughtful. For a few minutes, I went back to wiping the counter, trying not to stare. Outside, the fog pressed against the glass. Then came a knock from somewhere near the side window. Not loud enough to be sure of, not soft enough to ignore. I froze with a rag still in my hand, scanning the reflections. Nothing but my own face and the bright "no cash kept after hours" sign. "Probably the building settling," I said automatically. She looked up fast. "He does that," she whispered. "Taps first." A chill rippled through me. "You said your car broke down. Did you see who was following you?" She shook her head. I didn't look back. I walked the short hall to the back door anyway, turned both deadbolts, pressed my shoulder to the metal until I felt its weight, solid. When I came back, she'd moved closer to the counter, eyes fixed on the front glass, like she expected it to move. "You okay?" I asked. She didn't answer. Her gaze was locked on the convex mirror above the snack aisle, watching the reflection of the entrance. "He waits like that," she said finally. "Still. So you think he's gone?" I followed her line of sight.
just the empty lot. But I noticed something else. Her jacket sleeve had slipped, showing a white hospital band, edges frayed. She tugged it back quickly. "Marcy," I said carefully, "are you hurt?" "No." "Do you need medical?" "No, just tired." There's a kind of tired that sounds like surrender. I didn't push her. The phone buzzed. Dispatcher checking back. "Units on the way. 10 minutes. "Copy," I said, because that word feels like control. A few minutes later, headlights appeared through the fog. Too slow for highway traffic. They crawled along the service road behind the station, then disappeared behind the dumpsters. No engine sound after that. Just stillness. Marcy's hands tightened on the cup. "He's here," she said softly. I reached under the counter, touched the baseball bat I kept there. More for comfort than defense. The motion sensor by the ice freezer blinked once, then twice, then stopped. Could have been a raccoon, could have been the wind, but the timing felt wrong. When the patrol finally rolled up, blue lights washing the storefront, I almost exhaled. 2 officers stepped out. One motioned for me to stay put. The other spoke through the glass. I unlocked the inner door halfway. "She's inside," says someone followed her. The older cop nodded. "We'll talk to her." I turned. "They're here," I said. Marcy didn't move. "They're not here for me," she whispered. "They're here for him." The officers had her step outside while I stayed behind the counter. The younger one kept scanning the lot. The older one talked to her in low tones. I watched through the glass, trying to read lips, but all I caught was her shaking her head and saying no over and over. After a minute, the older officer came back. "You let her in?" "Yeah, she said someone followed her." He nodded slowly. "She's listed missing from a psychiatric facility in Kern County. Walked out earlier tonight. You did fine calling it in." Behind him, she stood beside the cruiser, eyes fixed on me. She didn't look angry, just hollow. "Don't take me back to that man," she said suddenly. "Not to the cop, to me." The older officer turned. "All right, ma'am, let's talk in the car." He guided her toward the open door. She didn't resist, just kept her eyes on the store until the cruiser door shut. When they drove off, I realized I was still holding the bat. I set it down, turned off the coffee warmer, and just listened. The quiet had weight again. About an hour later, CHP called to confirm. "No disabled vehicles reported near your exit," the dispatcher said. I thanked her, hung up, and stared at the empty pumps. That should have been it. A weird night filed under stories for the next staff meeting. But my mind kept replaying her words. He followed me. What if she hadn't imagined it? A few days later, one of the officers stopped by for coffee. I asked if they ever found her car. He shook his head. "Never saw one. She's back in care though. No harm done." Then he added, almost as an afterthought, "Guess she's had a few incidents like that before. Runs off, shows up somewhere, says she's being followed." "By who?" I asked. "She never says the same thing." I nodded, but something in me refused to let the story end that neatly. A week later, while restocking mints, I found a wadded paper towel behind the display. It was damp, folded into a small, hard square. Inside, written in pencil, "He likes glass." I just stood there, reading it over and over. It wasn't proof of anything, but I couldn't throw it away. I put it in the drop safe, the same place we store cash, because I didn't know where else to keep someone else's fear. Now, when I work, I don't buzz anyone in, not ever. I hand them what they need through the drawer, call for help first. I move the bench under the brightest light, right in view of the camera. I keep the bat closer. The dispatch number on speed dial. I've thought about her more than I probably should. Maybe she was sick. Maybe she was dangerous. Maybe she was right. Whatever the truth is, it lingers in this place. In the reflection of headlights moving too slowly past the pumps. You can't work nights without learning that danger doesn't always kick the door in. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it knocks politely. Sometimes it smiles through the glass and asks for warmth. And maybe that's what unsettles me most, that I opened the door once, thinking I was helping. And I keep thinking that someone out there learned exactly how long it takes me to hesitate. When the morning shift arrives, I always give the same line, "Quiet night." It's true enough. But every time the lock buzzes open for them, there's a brief echo from that night. Her voice, small and steady. "Don't take me back to that man." The older officer turned back. "All right, ma'am, let's talk in the car." He guided her toward the open door. She didn't resist, just kept her eyes on the store until the cruiser door shut. When they drove off, I realized I was still holding the bat. I set it down, turned off the coffee warmer, and just listened. The quiet had weight again. About an hour later, CHP called to confirm. "No disabled vehicles reported near your exit," the dispatcher said. I thanked her, hung up, and stared at the empty pumps. That should have been it. A weird night filed under stories for the next staff meeting. But my mind kept replaying her words. He followed me. What if she hadn't imagined it? A few days later, one of the officers stopped by for coffee. I asked if they ever found her car. He shook his head. "Never saw one. She's back in care though. No harm done." Then he added, almost as an afterthought, "Guess she's had a few incidents like that before. Runs off, shows up somewhere, says she's being followed." "By who?" I asked. "She never says the same thing." I nodded, but something in me refused to let the story end that neatly. A week later, while restocking mints, I found a wadded paper towel behind the display. It was damp, folded into a small, hard square. Inside, written in pencil, "He likes glass." I just stood there, reading it over and over. It wasn't proof of anything, but I couldn't throw it away. I put it in the drop safe, the same place we store cash, because I didn't know where else to keep someone else's fear. Now, when I work, I don't buzz anyone in. Not ever. I hand them what they need through the drawer, call for help first. I move the bench under the brightest light, right in view of the camera. I keep the bat closer. The dispatch number on speed dial. I've thought about her more than I probably should. Maybe she was sick. Maybe she was dangerous. Maybe she was right. Whatever the truth is, it lingers in this place. In the reflection of headlights moving too slowly past the pumps. You can't work nights without learning that danger doesn't always kick the door in. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it knocks politely. Sometimes it smiles through the glass and asks for warmth. And maybe that's what unsettles me most, that I opened the door once, thinking I was helping. And I keep thinking that someone out there learned exactly how long it takes me to hesitate. When the morning shift arrives, I always give the same line, "Quiet night." It's true enough, but every time the lock buzzes open for them, there's a brief echo from that night. Her voice, small and steady. "Don't take me back to that man." The door clicks shut, and I start another shift, pretending the world outside the glass isn't still watching. Because here's the truth. Every night since, I've kept that folded paper towel in my wallet, not for proof, for memory. A reminder that mercy and caution are a coin you can only spend once.
We thought we were alone that night. We locked the doors, counted the registers, and turned off the lights. But someone else had been watching us the entire time, hiding in plain sight. Working the closing shift at a grocery store is one of those jobs that sounds uneventful until you're the one locking up. I'd been doing it for about 3 years by then, Saturday nights especially. We closed at 10 p.m. By 9:30, the floors were buffed, The aisles were half empty, and the playlist switched from upbeat pop to whatever instrumental stuff corporate thought would make people hurry up and leave. That night started normal. I had self-checkout duty while my manager on duty, Rachel, handled the end-of-night paperwork in the office upstairs. The store had that end-of-shift calm, when everything hums but nothing moves. You could hear the squeak of a single cart from across the entire building. 10 minutes, folks, I called out, doing my usual sweep down the main aisle. We're closing up. That's when I noticed him. A tall man standing dead still in the cereal aisle, reading the back of a box like he was studying for a test. Mid-40s maybe, beard, dark hoodie. He didn't seem drunk or high, just absorbed. "Need help finding something?" I asked, trying to sound friendly. He looked up with this slow, polite smile. "Just deciding," he said. "All right, we're closing in 10, so—" "I'll be quick," he interrupted, not unkindly, but something about the way he said it made me believe he wouldn't. Still, I didn't press him. People get weirdly defensive about cereal. At 10 o'clock sharp, the music cut off, the closing announcement played, and I locked the front doors. I watched through the camera feed as Rachel did her final sweep. Produce, frozen, dairy. When she came around to dry goods, the man was gone. She gave me a thumbs up through the security glass. 10:01, I said, clocking out of the register. He's gone, or I think he is. We started our usual routine. Count tills, dump trash, lights down one section at a time. The hum of the fluorescent bulbs softened, replaced by the muted roar of the HVAC. It always gets a little eerie after hours. You start hearing things you didn't notice before. The buzz of the freezers, the rattle of the ceiling vents, your own shoes squeaking. By 12:30, we were finishing inventory reports in the small upstairs office that overlooks the store floor. I was cross-checking spreadsheets when Rachel stopped typing. "Did you hear that?" she asked. I shook my head. Sounded like footsteps. There it was again. Creak, step, pause. It came from right above us, in the narrow hallway where employees keep their lockers and uniforms. "Could be the pipes," I said, trying not to sound otherwise. "No," she said. "Listen." We both sat still. The sound was too heavy, too uneven for pipes. A few steps, then what sounded like a zipper sliding open. Rachel frowned, stood up, and grabbed the office flashlight. "Come on." The upstairs hallway always gave me weird vibes. It smelled faintly of detergent and metal, like an old gym locker. The walls were a dull beige that never quite looked clean, no matter how often maintenance painted them. We walked slowly, our footsteps echoing against the linoleum. The lockers lined both sides, all with cheap silver handles and combination locks. At the far end, near the emergency exit, a small window let in a square of orange light from the parking lot. Everything looked normal. No doors open, no signs of movement. Rachel crouched to check the floor. No muddy prints, no scuffs. Then she stopped. Behind the last row of lockers, barely visible from the hall, was a rolled-up sleeping bag. Next to it, 2 folded grocery bags. One filled with water bottles, the other with bananas and trail mix. "Somebody nested," Rachel whispered. A chill crept in. "You think he's still here?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just pointed to the ceiling vent above the lockers. The grate was slightly bent. We went back to the office, locked the door, and pulled up the camera feed. The screens showed every angle of the store floor. The aisles, the registers, the loading dock. But the upstairs hallway had no camera. The only coverage near it came from a feed showing the ladder that led from the back storage area to the upper maintenance level just below the roof. Rachel scrubbed back through the footage to around closing time. We watched the man from the cereal aisle, clear as day on camera 12. He grabbed a box of Frosted Flakes, pretended to read the back again, then looked around. When the last customer walked past, he drifted toward the rear of the store. At 9:55 p.m., the camera near the ladder caught a quick blur of movement. Just a shape, a shoulder, an arm slipping upward into the shadows. Then, nothing. I felt it in my gut. He climbed up before we closed. Rachel said, "He's been up there the whole time." We locked the office door, killed the lights, and called the police. The dispatcher said units were en route, told us to stay put and stay quiet. The line went dead, leaving only the low hum of the computer and the low creak from above. We sat in silence, waiting. Another sound, this time from directly overhead. A shuffle, then a slow drag, like someone moving their weight on a surface they didn't want to squeak. We didn't talk, didn't move, just listened. The noise came again, closer to the vent above the office. Then it stopped. The officers arrived around 1 a.m., 2 cruisers, their lights flashing blue and red through the glass. We met them at the loading dock, unlocked the back door, and explained everything. They moved in fast. One stayed downstairs, while 2 others took the stairwell to the employee area. We followed a few minutes later. The sleeping bag and supplies were still there, untouched. The officers fanned out, one shining his flashlight along the ceiling grid. "Hold on," one said, pointing to the vent. "That's been moved." He stepped onto a chair, pushed up the ceiling tile, then lowered it again, motioning for his partner. They climbed up with the portable ladder from maintenance. I remember the sound of insulation crinkling, followed by one officer's voice, "Got something." A minute later, he emerged holding a pair of boots, muddy, worn through the soles. "They're still warm," he said. But whoever owned them was gone. They spent the next hour sweeping the roof, the ducts, and the loading dock area. The theory was that he'd slipped out the ladder access door that led to the side alley sometime between our call and their arrival. When they came back down, they took photos of the sleeping bag and the supplies, then left it all bagged as evidence. One officer, young, looked barely older than me, tried to reassure us. "You did the right thing," he said. "Probably just someone homeless looking for warmth. Still, smart you checked the cameras." I nodded, but the explanation didn't sit right. That setup behind the lockers wasn't desperation. It was routine. The sleeping bag was neatly rolled, the food sorted. Whoever it was had been staying there for a while. We reopened the next morning like nothing happened. The store didn't want word getting out. Corporate came in, reviewed security footage, and installed a badge lock on the upstairs door. Rachel and I were told to keep quiet about it. Something about avoiding unnecessary panic. But after that night, I couldn't unhear the sounds. Every little creak made me stop. A few days later, one of the maintenance guys, Mike, pulled me aside. "You hear what they found?" he whispered. I thought he meant the boots. "No," he said. "When they took down that ceiling panel, they found insulation pulled back, like someone had been sleeping up there too." That explained the zipper sound. He'd probably been keeping his stuff in the vent cavity, sealing it up each morning before we opened. Mike grinned like it was a weird curiosity, but I didn't find it funny. I kept picturing that moment. Him slipping up the ladder at 9:55, silent while the rest of us were ringing out customers, watching us. A week later, I was alone in the office finishing reports when I heard the same creak again overhead. same rhythm. I froze, then turned on the ceiling fan out of pure instinct, like noise would make me invisible. I told myself it was the building settling. That was before the dust drifted down from the vent above me. Just a pinch, enough to make me get up and leave without finishing the report. The next morning, I told Rachel. She called maintenance again. They went up, checked everything, all clear, they said. I believed them because I had to. 3 weeks later, another store in our chain, same layout, same region, reported a break-in. The night staff found sleeping gear in the ceiling. No cameras caught anyone leaving there either. They thought maybe he was moving between stores. The company hired a third-party security firm. After that, they added locks, cameras, motion detectors. But even now, whenever I work a late shift, I look up at the vents before I turn the lights off. I try not to think about it too much. Still, I switched departments soon after. I couldn't close anymore. Not after knowing that the quiet, locked building we thought was ours had someone else's heartbeat inside it. Now, every time I walk past the cereal aisle, even as a customer, I check the ceiling first. Because once, I thought I knew who'd left the store, and I was wrong. I cleaned office buildings alone for years without any problems. That changed the night I saw 2 bare feet under a bathroom stall that wasn't supposed to have anyone in it. What I found hidden in the toilet tank still haunts me. I cleaned 12 floors every night, same loop. Vacuum, trash, bathrooms. My badge got me in at 9:45. My caddy rolled behind me like a tired pet. I'd keep one earbud in, one ear open. The building spoke if you listened. Vents sighing, pipes clicking, the elevator groaning to itself. The marble lobby always looked too clean to be real. The air sharp with polish. The mirror in the elevator was my only company. I'd watch myself shrink behind the reflection of the closing doors. Floor lights blinked in sequence. That quiet rhythm calmed me. By midnight, the city outside disappeared into glass reflections. I liked it better that way. No eyes watching. Floor 7 always slowed me down. It had a law office that never emptied their K-cup pods, and a women's restroom with a weirdly installed stall door. Decades ago, someone mounted it backward, hinges facing the wall. When it was closed, the door hid itself. You had to wedge sideways to reach the toilet. I used to laugh about it. Buildings had quirks. So did night crews. I'd leave that door open when I finished cleaning, just to remind myself the stall was done. A week into January, temperatures sunk below 10 degrees. On my second pass through 7, I noticed the door shut again. I'd left it open. I figured the draft from the vent must have nudged it. But the hinge was heavy. It didn't move easily. 2 nights later, it happened again. Open earlier, closed later. I even checked the hinge. Stiff, no swing. I told myself not to think too hard. Once you start chasing weird, every sound turns into a ghost. At 2 a.m., I came back to mop the baseboards. Kneeling down, I ran the mop under each stall. Habit made me shine my flashlight beneath the backward one. And oh my God, I remember it clear as day. I saw 2 bare feet, toes pointed toward me. No movement, no shoes in sight. For a second, my brain refused to label them as human, just shapes, pale and dusty. Then it clicked. Custodial, I said automatically.
building's closed. I need you to answer." Nothing. I swallowed. "Ma'am?" Still nothing. The feet stayed perfectly still. My instincts split. One side said, "Run." The other said, "Don't turn your back." I backed out slowly, pushing the cart until its wheel bumped the doorframe. My phone was in my pocket, battery blinking red. No service bars in the center of the building. I grabbed the wall phone inside the janitor's closet. Dead tone. The radio on my hip. Static, then silence. Of course. The hall felt longer than usual. I looked back at the women's door. No movement. If someone was in there, I couldn't leave them alone. If someone wasn't, then I was staring at nothing and acting like a rookie. Neither option was good. I took the elevator down 2 floors to security. Luis, the overnight guard, was at his desk sipping coffee from a thermos the size of a gas can. "Problem?" he asked. "Maybe," I said. "I saw feet, bare ones, 7th floor restroom, door shut again." He didn't joke or question it. He just grabbed his keyring. We go together. The elevator ride back up felt wrong, like being swallowed by silence. When the doors opened, my cart waited in the hallway where I'd left it. The restroom door was shut. No footprints leaving in or out. Luis held up his flashlight. "You do the talking," he whispered. I stepped forward. "Custodial, security's with me. If you're in there, say something." Silence. Luis nodded toward the door. I pulled. It resisted, then gave way. Empty. Toilet lit up. Tank lid shifted crooked. No feet, no dust smudge where they'd been. Luis checked the stalls one by one. "Nothing," he said. Then eyed the tank. "Hold on." He lifted the lid. Inside, a Ziploc bag stuffed with a toothbrush and a cell phone, sealed inside another baggie. We just stared. He lowered the lid carefully. "Somebody lived in a bathroom stall," he said. He called the second guard, Tori, and reported it to dispatch. While he talked, I stood in the doorway, feeling every sound of the building. When the second guard arrived, they swept the stairwells and the mechanical room. No one. Luis sealed the items in a bag and logged the find. Possible overnight trespass. He told me to stick close until the sweep was done. Probably homeless, he said. He had that calm, practiced tone of someone who'd seen too much weird to be shocked. The next morning, the company told us not to mention it to tenants. Maintenance came and removed the faulty stall door. "Safety upgrade," they said. Corporate loves euphemisms. I kept working. Nights don't stop for one strange incident. After that, security added hourly patrols between 1 and 5 a.m. Luis walked every floor, sometimes whistling softly so we'd know he was near. Maintenance started checking ceilings. The company promised to add cameras in employee areas. None of that erased the image of those feet, though. Back on my route, I couldn't stop the small paranoia habits. I'd knock before entering any restroom. I'd announce myself, even if I knew I was alone. I stopped wearing earbuds. Every creak made me pause. The janitor who covered floor 3 told me she'd found fresh dust trails under a stall the same week we discovered the stash upstairs. No feet, just a faint heel mark. Management brushed it off as residual traffic. Luis didn't. He started keeping a record book of every sound or sighting. "You think this will help?" I asked. "It helps me," he said. "Buildings talk. You just need to remember what they said yesterday." For a week, nothing happened. The silence was almost worse. It gave space for imagination. Working nights changes how you think about buildings. You stop assuming emptiness equals safety. You learn that silence is active. It hides things until you trip over them. People imagine night crews as lonely but peaceful. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes you hum to your vacuum, talk to yourself, count hours until dawn. But every so often, you feel a pause in the rhythm, like someone else inhaled at the same moment you did. That's what fear really is on night shifts. Not screams, not jump scares. Just realizing the building's breath doesn't match yours. I stayed another year before switching jobs. On my last week, I wrote a little reminder on a Post-it and stuck it inside my cart behind the disinfectant bottle, where no one else would notice. Knock, announce, back out. Simple, true, my own small rule book. Sometimes I dream of that tower, the glossy lobby, the elevator mirror, the faint hum of lights shutting down one by one. In the dream, I'm back on floor 7. The stall stands open.
For 12 years, I walked the same hospital maintenance route every night without incident. Then, I saw a man standing perfectly still in the parking lot, staring at the doors. Every time I blinked, he got closer. And the security footage showed something that made my blood run cold. I work doing night shift maintenance at a hospital downtown. For 12 years, my nights have been measured in coffee and machine noise. When the city sleeps, the hospital never really does. It just slows down, trading the chaos of day for a rhythm only the tired recognize. My route doesn't change. Every hour, I walk the same loop. Boiler room, chillers, elevators, loading dock, back through the glass corridor that faces the staff parking lot. The routine keeps things simple. Machines don't lie. They fail, they leak, they squeak, but they don't pretend. That night, around 2:10 a.m., I was doing my East Corridor pass, clipboard in hand, jotting down readings. The glass wall overlooked the lot. Rows of cars under flat white light. Usually it's empty, except for a few nurses swapping shifts or security making a round. But that night, someone was there. At first, I thought it was a reflection, my own outline in the glass. But when I cupped my hands around my face to cut the glare, I saw him clearly. A man standing between two parked cars, still as a post, facing the entrance doors, arms hanging at his sides. That alone wasn't too weird. Visitors sometimes wander into staff areas, confused about exits. I'd seen drunks and grieving relatives alike standing in strange places at stranger hours. I picked up the phone by the door and called security. "Got a guy out in the east lot," I said, "between rows 2 and 3, facing the main entrance." The dispatcher sounded distracted. "Both guards are on the 5th floor. Patient situation. Can you keep eyes on him?" "Copy that," I said, and hung up. I flicked the corridor lights off to get a clearer view. Outside, the man hadn't moved. The glow from the lot lamps made his outline sharp. Then I blinked, and he was closer, one row closer to the building. Same posture, same blank stance. I leaned against the glass. Maybe the reflection from another window made it look that way. I unlocked the side door, stepped under the overhang, and aimed my flashlight into the lot. Nothing. Just asphalt and a plastic candy wrapper tumbling in the breeze. I swung the beam across the rows. Nothing but silent cars and painted lines. I turned to go back inside. Then I looked through the opposite window. And he was there again. near the crosswalk this time, still facing the doors. I hit the lock override, setting the automatic doors to badge-only access, and called security again. "Still out there?" the dispatcher asked. "Closer," I said. "Crosswalk." She told me they were sending one of the guards down with a spotlight. I stayed by the glass. The figure hadn't moved, just watched the doors.
A few minutes later, I saw the golf cart lights sweep across the lot. The two guards, Harlan and the new kid, Patel, pulled up near the gate. Harlan stepped out with the handheld spotlight and panned over the cars, then down the row where I'd seen the figure. The beam passed across a column near the entrance gate and caught what looked like a sleeve sticking out from behind it. Both guards reacted instantly. Harlan walked toward it. Patel angled the spotlight higher. But when they reached the pillar, the sleeve was gone. Nothing there. Just a concrete base, a gate arm, and a trash can half full of cigarette butts. They looked up at me through the glass. I shrugged and met them outside. "Footprints," Patel said, pointing at the pavement near the crosswalk. The marks were clear, the kind of tread you get from cheap work boots. They led straight from between the parked cars toward the curb, and then stopped right at the edge. Harlan crouched down, ran a finger over one of them. "Still damp," he said. "That's recent." We looked across the lot again. Silent cars, flat light, no movement. "Probably someone from the psych wing wandered off again," I said, trying to make it smaller. "Then where's he now?" Harlan said. We swept the lot together anyway. 3 of us, walking slow rows, flashlights crossing paths like a search grid. Nothing, not a sound, but the noise of the nearby transformer. We circled back. I noticed something small, half a cigarette still burning near the trash can. Propped up on the edge, filter down, like someone had set it there mid-smoke and never came back. "Fresh," Patel said, "still warm." Harlan just stared at it. "We'll check cameras." We went inside, past the double doors that sighed as they sealed. In the security office, the lot footage looked grainy but serviceable. We scrubbed back to 2:10 a.m. The camera showed the rows of cars, the streetlight reflections, and then a shape appeared halfway between the rows. No face, no color, just a silhouette melting into the pixels. "That's him," I said. "Or that's nothing," Harlan said. "You know these cameras glitch." Still, he marked the timestamp and logged it. I tried to forget it. But around 3 a.m., walking past the glass corridor again, I found myself slowing down. The lot was empty, but the stillness felt weird, like too quiet. The next night, I caught Nurse Abby from the ICU by the badge reader near the same door. She looked unsettled. "You working last night?" she asked. "Yeah." She rubbed her arms. "Someone tailgated my badge around 2. I thought it was a coworker, but when I turned, nobody. The door didn't open. I thought maybe it was the sensor." "What time?" I asked. 11, give or take." I didn't tell her about the figure. Just nodded and said I'd mention it to security. We added her note to the incident log. Attempted tailgate, no entry. It lined up with the camera timestamp almost exactly. For a few weeks, nothing happened. Then, late February, it did. I was doing my rounds again. Same route, same hour, 2:12 a.m. The lot was wet from freezing rain, and there he was, down by the gate this time. Pale coat, arms loose, looking toward the entrance like he was trying to read the building. I didn't blink or move. I just watched. My first thought wasn't fear. It was, "Here we go again." I called it in. "Lot figure," I said, "at the gate." The dispatcher paused, her tone flattened. "Copy. Sending Harlan and Patel."
I kept the doors locked and stayed by the window. When they arrived, the spotlight swept across the asphalt. It landed on the gate pillar, the same one as before. And this time, I saw it happen. The light hit the space behind it, and for half a second, something like a shoulder shimmered there. Then, it was gone. The guards moved fast, crossed the distance, found nothing again. But this time, there were prints. 3 of them leading right up to the base of the gate. Clear tread, deep edges, then nothing. We didn't say anything for a few seconds. Just stood there with flashlights making halos in the mist. Finally, Harlan sighed. If this is a prank, it's a damn good one. We reviewed the cameras again. Same result. A distortion, a long streak of shadow where a person should have been. No face, no body, just motion, pretending to be human. The next morning, security reviewed it all with day shift management. No conclusions. The footage didn't show enough for police. But by 9 a.m., 3 different staff members had reported strange encounters. A nurse said she'd gotten a phone call from a man claiming his wife was admitted and that he'd forgotten something in her room. He repeated the same line, word for word, 3 times when she said visiting hours were over. The number was blocked. An orderly said a man had been seen standing by the hospice garden statue earlier that week. Same posture, same stillness. When approached, he simply turned and walked into the darkness between streetlights. The hospital decided to add the staff lot to our nightly patrols permanently. I didn't complain. I wanted eyes on it too. After that, I made it part of my rounds. 2:10, 2:30, 3. I'd stop by the window, look out. Sometimes I'd even step outside under the overhang just to hear the air and reassure myself it was empty. Once, when I checked the security monitor, I noticed a faint smear near the same crosswalk spot. Not solid enough to call a person, just movement pretending to have purpose. That's what unnerves you most in places like this. Things pretending. You can't reason with what won't act like it's real. It's been 4 years since that winter. We still call it the lot incident. Harlan's retired, Patel moved to day shift. Abby quit nursing. I'm still here. Same rounds, same quiet hours. Every so often, the automatic doors at the east entrance open and close with no badge. Sensors can misread a gurney strap or a moth, sure. But when it happens around 2:10 a.m., I still look up at the monitor before I go back to my checklist. People ask me sometimes, what do you think it was? I don't give them ghost stories. I just tell them what I know. Twice, a figure stood in that lot when no one should have been there. Twice, it moved closer without walking. Twice, the prints stopped at the curb. Everything else, the phone calls, the cameras, the cigarette, it all adds up to a shape of something we still don't have a name for. You work enough nights, you learn that some things aren't meant to be fixed, just documented.
Story 5. She walked into our urgent care like she belonged there. She helped with patients, charted notes, and even made coffee. But when I tried to add her to our system, I discovered something terrifying. We had no nurse named Taylor, and she'd been there for hours. Night shifts don't lie. They show you who actually knows their job and who just wants daylight hours. Nights fall into a pattern if you've worked enough of them. Handoff at 7, quiet settling in by 8, doors locked by 9, then the long stretch until dawn, where every creak writes a question in your head. At our urgent care in Salem, it's a small crew after hours. 1 provider, 2 nurses, 1 MA, 1 front desk, and a security guard who sometimes looks like he wants to be anywhere else. I'm the charge nurse, so I keep to the desk where I can see the monitors and hear the radios. Nights are calm when you respect them, and brutal when you don't. May 6th, 2022 started like any other. We patched up a kid's fever, handed out ginger ale to a man with a panic attack, stitched up a Walmart worker's hand after he argued with a shelf. By 11, the place was quiet enough for us to tease Laya, my MA, about her terrible coffee. Gabe at the front desk had put on one of his cardigans, which always meant the building felt colder than the thermostat admitted. Dr. Chen hummed while writing notes, which meant he was in a decent mood. Then, at 11:10, she walked in. She didn't come through the lobby like a patient. She came from the staff hallway, the way you'd come back from grabbing supplies. Navy scrubs, dark hair pulled into a bun that had loosened through the night, a badge clipped to her pocket, mask looped under her chin. "Hey," she said, sliding into the chair beside me. "Mind if I help with intake?" It didn't feel strange at first. Float nurses show up late, per diem staff come and go, and honestly, when someone offers to help at night, you don't complain. "Go for it," I told her. "Taylor," she said, already opening the charting software. Her voice was calm. She typed like she'd done this before. Tiny errors, nothing alarming. I didn't question it. Laya came by for disinfectant wipes and waved at her like she'd been there all night. "Thanks for the coffee earlier," she joked. Taylor smiled without looking up. Nothing about her stood out. She wasn't awkward. She just sort of blended in. We had a walk-in 10 minutes later, a college kid with a busted knuckle. Taylor asked the right questions, tetanus history, allergies. She charted while I wrapped his hand. It was seamless. But around 12:40, when things calmed, I tried to add her to the timekeeping system. No Taylor matched her face. No license number in our system. "Can you badge in?" I asked. She gave me a small smile. It doesn't always like me. At 1:12, the system logged "access denied, user Taylor P" at the front door. The system doesn't guess names. It only shows what's programmed. I looked at her. She was typing calmly, as if nothing had happened. I asked Laya, "Did you see her come in?" Laya frowned. "I thought she was with you." Gabe at the desk said maybe she slipped in with a delivery. Security had no memory of buzzing her through. At 1:50, Taylor offered to restock room 4. I watched her walk down the hall with a clipboard. When I went to check 2 minutes later, the room was empty. Supply cart half open. Drawer sticking out. No Taylor. We pulled the camera feeds. Around 11:05, she comes in right behind the last delivery of the night, slipping through the delivery gate like she belonged there. We switched to the footage from room 4, just before 2 a.m. She's walking out, carrying a small bag stuffed with supplies. Then, same angle, back at the gate. She leaves through the very door she entered, calm, no rush. After that, nothing. Her half-finished chart was still open. A sticky note by the keyboard. "Remember to ask tetanus history." The house supervisor confirmed. No nurse named Taylor scheduled anywhere. 3 days later, Portland PD called. A nurse in Eugene had her bag stolen 2 nights earlier. Badge inside. Same name, same face. We taped her still, framed by the staff door. "Do not admit without verification." But it wasn't what she did that unsettled me. It was how normal she was. Calm, helpful. Her voice when I offered coffee. "Black, thanks." It plays in my head sometimes. I can't stop thinking. If she hadn't vanished, how long would we have let her stay? I've been a janitor for 20 years. I know every sound this building makes. But nothing prepared me for the night I found a man sitting calmly in a locked classroom, staring at me through the glass like he'd been waiting for me to find me. My name's Derek. I've been a school janitor most of my adult life. Nights suit me. No kids, no teachers. I like quiet. I like routine. I'd been working at Lincoln High long enough to know every quirk of the place. Which radiators bang, which windows never quite shut, which doors you have to lean on in the winter. I start with the first floor wings, sweep, mop, lock doors behind me, and work my way up. By the time I get to the second floor, the building is mine. That night, everything was normal. The cafeteria chairs stacked neatly, vending machines humming like oversized crickets, the smell of lemon disinfectant following me wherever I went. I'd locked room 208 just like always, lights off, windows latched, tugged the handle to make sure. 15 minutes later, the motion sensor light in 208 clicked on. Those lights only trigger with movement. My first thought was draft, maybe a stray balloon. But this was January, no balloons, no breeze strong enough to fool a sensor. I walked back and leaned close to the wired glass pane. That's when my eyes landed on him. A man sitting at a student desk in the second row, upright, hands folded, dark jacket zipped up, cap pulled low. He turned his head just enough that his eyes met mine through the glass, like he'd been waiting for me. My stomach clenched. The door was still locked. I twisted the handle again, solid. That meant he hadn't come in after me. He was just there. No wave, no smile, no explanation, just calm acknowledgement, like two strangers on a bus bench. I backed up slow, pulled out my radio. Second floor, room 208, adult male inside, door locked from my side. My coworker Marty came up with his mop like it was a spear. He peered through the glass and muttered, "Well, that ain't right." Neither of us moved closer. I called dispatch. Lincoln High, second floor, room 208. Male subject inside a locked classroom. Doesn't appear to be staff or parent. Aware. Calm. They said officers were en route, so we waited. If you've never stood in a school hallway at night with someone staring at you from inside a locked room, let me tell you, silence is different. In daylight, it feels like a pause. At night, it feels like the building is listening back. I stayed where I could see both the door and the stairwell. Marty tried to whisper a joke, something about students sneaking in, but his voice fell flat. The man didn't fidget, didn't scratch his nose, didn't adjust his jacket. That bothered me most. Even patience has little tells. He had none. Every couple of minutes, I looked at the clock above the lockers. Each minute stretched like gum. My palms started to sweat around the key ring, even though the hall was cool. I couldn't shake the thought. If he was in there with the door locked, he wanted to be. Finally, 2 officers arrived. One older, calm, one younger, alert but tense. They looked through the glass, saw what we saw. The older officer said, "We see him." He knocked. "Sir, we're going to open this door." I unlocked it with my key, felt the tumblers click, pulled it open. The man stood smooth, like he'd been waiting for that exact cue. His hand went into his jacket. The younger officer barked, "Hands up!" But instead, he pulled a pistol. The hallway exploded with sound, shouts, desks scraping, boots thudding. The older officer lunged, grabbed his arm, slammed him against the whiteboard tray. The gun clattered to the floor. The younger officer shoved him down, radio crackling as he yelled, "Suspect armed." From the hall, I caught flashes, the black pistol sliding under a desk, a chair toppling. I heard grunts, the scrape of shoes, the smack of a fist. "Drop it, control the arm," commands barked over the chaos. Then cuffs snapped. The fight drained out. They dragged him upright, face scraped, jacket twisted, hands pinned behind his back. And as they walked in past me, he turned his head and looked at me, calm as ever, like he wanted to remember exactly who I was. That look stayed with me more than the gun. They bagged the weapon, loaded, safety off, round chambered. The district called a meeting the next morning. Words like rare incident and reviewing protocols got thrown around. HR handed out flyers about vigilance. The union rep asked what we were supposed to do if it happened again. Nobody had a real answer. The cops told me later he had prior trespassing charges, theft, nothing violent on paper, nothing that explained why he walked into a high school at night with a loaded gun. I went back to work that night because not going back would have felt like letting him own the building. But I changed how I worked. I tugged every lock twice. I kept one hand on my keys as I walked. Routine used to make me feel safe. After that night, routine felt more like hope. Something I wanted to believe in, not something I could rely on. Now, every time I pass room 208, I pause. Sometimes I even say evening out loud, like acknowledging the space helps keep it mine. The motion sensor still clicks on at odd times. I tell myself it's ducks shifting, but deep down, I know it's a reminder. That night taught me a locked door is just a promise you make to yourself. The world doesn't always agree to keep it.